What's up, a Cinema Shogun here with some breaking news. Amazon and the Rings of Power official Twitter account just released a statement. Can you guess what they said? If you guessed that they are accusing Tolkien fans of being racist, then bingo, you got it correctly. I mean, I wish I could say that this was a surprise, but if you did not see this one coming, then you haven't been paying attention close enough. Amazon is pulling a play directly out of Disney's playbook. We have been seeing this for the last few years. They promote a television show or a movie solely based on the diversity within that movie or TV show, or solely based on strong women characters or what have you. And then when the movie comes out or the show comes out and it flops or it doesn't do as impressively as they thought it would and there's criticism online, they immediately get to accusing people of being misogynist and all types of ists and phobes, you name it. And now the Rings of Power is doing exactly just that. And let me say this, before I read the statement, if Amazon got half the amount of viewers they claimed to get on the Rings of Power, they wouldn't be paying attention to the chit chat and the chatter online or on YouTube or on social media. The reason they're paying attention so closely to what people are saying is because this show isn't performing the way they wanted it to, the way they expected. They claim they got 25 million viewers. I highly doubt that. As I live my life and traverse through society, I don't hear anyone talking about the Rings of Power outside of, the people who cover it on YouTube and, of course, the random people on Twitter. But in the real world, you're not sitting by the water tank at work filling up a cup of water or making yourself a cup of coffee, and the person next to you is talking about the Rings of Power. The way they, you might have engaged in conversations about Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad or something like that. Like, no one's really talking about the Rings of Power. Yet they claim that millions upon millions of people watched it. Yet here they are pulling these petty tactics of accusing anyone with criticism of the show of being ist and phobes and what have you. But let's go ahead and get right into the statement. We, the cast of Rings of Power, stand together in absolute solidarity and against the relentless racism, threats, harassment, and abuse some of our castmates of color are being subjected to on a daily basis. We refuse to ignore it or tolerate it. Now, you could simply just ignore it. As I go through social media and I see criticisms about this show, I don't see anyone being ists. In fact, I've seen a lot of people say that Disa is one of the most liked characters in the show. One of the most likable characters in the show. I'll be honest. I haven't even been able to stomach episode 2 yet. I sat through episode 1. It was so boring that I've been trying like, hey, just do it. Watch episode 2. But every fiber of my being does not want me to watch that show because it sucks, but I'm going to. But now that it's out, I don't hear anyone really talking about the race swapping and, the introduction of races within the Lord of the Rings that necessarily weren't supposed to be there according to Tolkien. But no one's really talking about that. Everyone's talking about how boring, bland, how dry the dialogue is, just how much of a drag it is to watch. It's not exciting. It's terrible. It's downright terrible. Even people who are all along not complaining about the interesting decisions they decided to make with this show, they're even like, man, this show's garbage. But let's see what else they had to say. Tolkien created a world which by definition is multicultural. A world in which free peoples from different races and cultures join together in fellowship to defeat the forces of evil. Rings of Power reflects that. Our world has never been all white. Fantasy has never been all white. Middle Earth is not all white. It kind of mostly is. BIPOCs belong in Middle Earth, and they are here to stay. God, I hate when they use these woke words like BIPOCs. Like, I mean, honestly, people out there, do you want to be called BIPOCs? I would never sit down and talk to someone that's a different race than me and refer to them as a BIPOC. I feel like that's what racists do. That's the reality of this is these woke idiots that feel the need to virtue signal and do all of this stuff in Hollywood, they're the ones that are really racist. And they try to cover it up with their virtue signals and doing all of this nonsense. But they're the real racists. Us average people, we're out here interacting with everyone. America's a melting pot. When I live my life on a daily basis, I interact with so many different types of people on a daily basis. From friends to people that you just talk to in the store, anything. Like I interact with a wide variety of people. These woke idiots in Hollywood, they're living in their mansions on the hills, and they're not like, around a multicultural, diverse crowd. So when they make their movies and TV shows, they really feel like they're doing something when they race swap people. That's them trying to cover up for their own, their own ways and their own lack of diversity that's around them because they're mostly rich, white, woke leftists. But let's go forward. Finally, all our love and fellowship go out to the fans supporting us, especially fans of color, who are themselves being attacked simply for existing in this fandom. We see you, your bravery, and endless creativity. Your cosplays, fan cams, fan art, and insights make this community a richer place and remind us of our purpose. You are valid. You are loved. You belong. You are an integral part of the Lord of the Rings family. Thanks for having our backs. This is so nonsensical. This is taking it to the extreme. No one is attacking fans of color of Tolkien. In fact, as I look around, I see plenty fans of color, if that's what we're calling them. That's what they're calling them. Okay? I wouldn't refer to anyone as a fan of color. That just sounds awkward and kind of racist if you really think about it. But that's the woke idiots in Hollywood. That's what they like to do. Fans of color. No, just you're fans. I don't ever look at someone and be like, oh, yeah, there goes a black fan of Lord of the Rings. There goes an Indian fan of Lord of the Rings. There's an Asian fan of Lord of the Rings. No, it's just you're a fan of Lord of the Rings. We were all fans of Lord of the Rings for years. Mostly, we weren't worried about the forced diversity back then because that wokeness hadn't crept in our society yet. But they're sitting here now they're creating this straw man because fans are not getting attacked. The only one that's receiving any amount of heat is Amazon and the people who worked on the show. No one's coming at any fans. And I'll take it one step further. When they're talking about the cosplays and the fan cams and the fan art, a lot of that is coming from fake fans. On Twitter, how they have those fan cams and there's always those Twitter stan accounts. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's hundreds of Rings of Power fan accounts. And most of them are Twitter bots. Literally bots. And you see it with every show. And it's like they never talk about anything but that show. And they basically just share pictures from the television series. And even though they have like, 1,000 followers, everything they post gets like 60,000 likes because it's all part of the program. It's not real. Most, I'm not going to say all, but most Lord of the Rings Tolkien fans, I don't think they're making fan cams. I'm not saying that they aren't. I'm sure some are. But for the most part, Tolkien fans aren't your average run-of-the-base anime profile pic, fan cam making type of people. The cosplay, yeah, but I don't know. It seems like they basically called out the fake fans in the community. So many cosplayers out there, and I have no problem with, people who are into cosplay, but when you're really in like nerd culture, you realize that a lot of cosplayers out there, they don't know anything about the source material. They do awesome cosplays, but a lot of them don't even really know the characters and the stories that they're cosplaying. It's just another way for people who weren't really involved in geek culture to get involved in geek culture. And I see nothing wrong with that. But I just find it interesting that they're like, hey, all of you fans out there who make fan art, do fan cams, do cosplay, they basically named the fake fan poser starter kit. Because I remember when it wasn't cool to like comic books. It wasn't cool to like the Lord of the Rings. Now it's like cool to be a nerd. And you have all of these fake posers and grifters coming in. You remember like a few years back, everyone on YouTube who was talking movies, half of them didn't care about superheroes at all. Like Collider and stuff like that. That was all phony, has-beens who failed in Hollywood who decided to grift off of geek culture. And they basically named how, I'll go on a rant all day about it. But yeah, they basically named people who make fan cams and all of this other stuff that a lot of fake fans do. That's just my opinion. But anyway, the article is stupid. The statement is stupid. Obviously, this was going to happen. They have to accuse you of being an ist or phobe or misogynist or whatever if you don't like their bullshit TV shows that they're spinning out. After watching episode 1, I could say that the last thing on my mind was the diversity. It's just that the show was so incredibly boring, cringy, and there was not a single character within that episode that I could cling on to and be like, okay, well, I kind of like this character in this storyline. And they introduced a ton of characters, and all of them were bland, dry, boring, and Galadriel was just a downright bitch and unlikable. Period. The show freaking sucks. But I want to know your thoughts about this down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell, and I'll talk to you all on the next video.